Thank you very much. Afternoon, everyone. That's me. I'm Lee Wilcox. I'm the co-founder, CEO of On the Tools, part-time cowboy. Cowboy is a terrible word to use, isn't it, when you're a business owner or a marketeer? But you may recognise me from the booklet, the programme, or you may not, because I've grown this massive beard and it doesn't actually look like me. So I'm glad I've been able to get on stage and prove I exist. So today I want to take you through content, particularly and specifically through social media. So a little bit about me. So like all great businesses, we started on a Friday evening drunk. So we were at a barbecue, myself and a very old school friend, and we came up with the idea for a recruitment app within construction in the UK. So in the UK, the recruitment industry within construction is very word of mouth. So, and the construction industry is relatively archaic in terms of the way they employ people, the support they get, and actually how they associate with each other and get more jobs on site. Adam, our other co-founder, was a tradesperson and he's been a shop fitter for 12 years at this point and was moaning about the fact that he couldn't find a plasterer on a job. So I was adamant, as a bit of a geek really, just a lover of tech, that there's got to be something out there that would connect tradesperson or contractor to subcontractor. You've got things in the UK like Check a Trade or Rated People, where they're vetted tradespeople coming into your home, so very much a B2C platform, but there was nothing for the B2B market. So this was actually, I don't know why I took the picture, I have no idea, there was no relevance to it whatsoever. I think it got posted on Instagram initially, but we took a photo of the bottles that we drank that night and woke up the next morning with an horrific hangover. And Adam was like, you know, are we doing this? Is this going to be something we actually go forward with? So we agreed we were going to, came up with a name. On the Tools, just, you know, I appreciate, I usually do these talks in the UK, but On the Tools is a term in the UK that all tradespeople use when they're using tools, i.e. they're in the building trade, so it's very much a well-known turn of phrase in the UK. And so we came up with the name, had no money, so we rinsed 3 credit cards together and built this spec for this app and put it off onto Elance and was like, okay, in 12 months' time, we're going to get this back. All we need is 100,000 builders. We'll launch it. We'll be rich. Job done. That was the business plan, yeah? So what we quickly realised was that we needed, we had no money for marketing whatsoever, and it was around about the time in the UK where short-form viral content was really starting to take wind, particularly through Facebook. So you have big publishers like Viral Thread, Lad Bible, Unilad, that were really booming with this like user-generated short-form content. So Adam was like, look, let's start a Facebook page. I've got loads of videos from us all mucking around on site and like funny videos. We always share it all. We'll do that and we'll start a Facebook page. It turns out he had about 4 videos, and so I spent 2 weeks going through YouTube and looking at different bits of content we could use, and quite quickly what happened was that we had ambitions to get this 100,000 within 12 months, and then within 2 weeks we had 10,000 followers, and within 3 months we had 250,000. And what had happened quite quickly was that we'd landed on this niche within the UK that was big, which was great for us, but they didn't exist anywhere online. They wanted to be part of this community. They wanted to be featured on the page. They wanted to show each other on site. Through the thread, they were communicating at a rapid rate. We almost couldn't control it. And at this point, I'm employed elsewhere. I'm getting home. I'm from 6 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going through messages, watching video content, scheduling what's going to go on back the next day. I'm like, my eyes are wide open with matchsticks, and then I go back to work the next day. So we did that for 6 months, and then realised that we still had no money, and that it was coming to breaking point. So we utilised the community then to set up an e-commerce store. So we a few people had started messaging the page and asking for merchandise, for On The Tools merchandise, and we spent 2 days setting up a Shopify store, made some really questionable designs that we'd basically picked from the top comments on a thread that we'd asked people to, give us some funny slogans or what it might be for each trade. And then we set the shop live, and then we had £800 worth of sales in the first 3 days. So I quit my job, sent out all the first bits of merch that we ordered in black bin liners, and posted them out, and I was like, we've done it, we are gonna, this is it, we are rich now, we're gonna be rich. Again, it turned out that wasn't the greatest of business plans. However, what it did allow us to do was spend some time on the community again. So we had a great first year there with the e-commerce store, and quite quickly the community started growing even further than that. And so along that way, what we'd come to see across the platform itself from a branded content perspective, and just content in general, it was lots of brands working with publishers across the platform. And we felt that we had a great engaged community, that had a shared interest that no other communities did across the platform. So we wanted to work with brands, and so that's what we set about doing. So fast forward to where we are now, and On The Tools has grown into a community that's just over 3.5 million followers. We've acquired other communities and grown other communities along the way. We're about to launch into a new branded agency that will sit above On The Tools and another community called On A Budget, which actually, ironically, was the person we've partnered with on that was also drunk on a Friday night when she set that up, and that's a community for 1.5 million women in the UK that share ideas, upcycle and save money in the household, and really engaged community. Obviously, the complete opposite to On The Tools, which is a great thing for us. So what we got really good at, and what we had to get really good at pretty quickly, was creating content. So as we went along, we were having content sent in to us, and we were able to edit that or license it and then sell it or whatever we might do with that. But ultimately, it was being fed to us. And over a period of time, and particularly through Facebook, that slowed down, and content creation in-house became much more important, particularly if we were going to work with brands. And we got to a point where we had a commercial team and people were selling things, but we still didn't have any videographers, and so we've built that in-house now, and we create content daily for the communities, and we work with the platforms. We've got great relationships with Facebook and Instagram, and now we work with brands on a daily basis. And last year we were third in the UK for branded content, beating the likes of Unilad, Lad Bible. Now, the reason I show this is, one, to brag, because it's great to brag when you're on stage, just for, 5 seconds or something. But the main reason is to show that power of the niche communities. There's such a powerful engagement through communities that have a shared interest, and whether that be, like us, where we have a large niche and a large following, or whether it be something that's super small, but ultimately they've got that shared interest. And what it allows publishers, marketeers, brands, whatever it is, to do is create content for a specific audience. And the key to that, and the real benefit of that, particularly across Facebook, Instagram, is that when a video is first surfaced, and we all know as marketeers that we have to fight with the algorithms of all these platforms, but what happens with that content when it first gets surfaced on social media is that it's tested with a set of that audience. It's tested with less than 10% now, and then on that basis, what will happen is they'll test whether that set of people engage with that content. If they do, it will go up to another notch of X percentage, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, if you've got a super, super broad audience that is global and that has less of a shared interest, and you've got broad sets of content in it, then obviously when that gets served out to that audience, even though you may have a huge following, like, Lad Bible's following was at this point was at 34 million, what happens is that depending on what that content is and depending on who sees it, not all of it's going to do as well as you'd like. Whereas when you've got a niche community and you've got a real shared interest, when you know what people engage with, it's a lot easier to create content for. And I'm going to take you through today with what I believe is the good, the bad, and the unshareable. The unshareable, for me, is unrelatable. And what I mean by that is, I think what a lot of pages or brands and content creators do will jump on certain things that are happening through the year. So a good example or a bad example would be today, I checked it today, so today in the UK is chocolate milkshake day, right? So it's like, you know, these stupid, funny national days that, that every nation has. And I think what happens is that brands will see those things, they'll follow those lists and they'll do these things and they'll create content based on that, even though, you know, it really has no relevance. It's not relatable to anyone who follows that community or is in that community, but sometimes, you know, you think content's a great idea and because you think it's a great idea, and actually you need to really concentrate on what the community is built for and what it's there for. False advertising and breaking the rules I'm going to come on to, but just as an example of this, and I did this talk in London a week ago, and I checked before I shit on certain estate agents, which I'm gonna. You know, I checked whether they're in the room. It's highly unlikely that in Amsterdam they're going to be, and if you are, I apologise. But this is a terrible example of how to use social. So ultimately, they're a local estate agents, right? And their content strategy is to start talking about Spice Girls, which has no relevance, one, to their business, but two, it's so broad in terms of who may see that, even if it was relevant to their business, that it has no impact. You know, they're not talking the language. If you're a local estate agent, you know, maybe do some content on housing, or, you know, stuff that you've actually got on your books, or create content of going through houses, or how best to top 10 list on how to prep for selling a house or buying a house or renting a house or whatever it might be. Don't talk about Spice Girls on a Tuesday night or whatever it might be. And the worst thing about this isn't me creating a really bad image. This was the image that was uploaded. It's so blurry that instantly, as soon as that gets uploaded to Facebook in particular, and especially Instagram even more so, low quality images, the algorithm's just going to eat it up and spit it in the bin, and that it goes nowhere. And there's some real basic things that I think pages and communities do wrong, and this is unfortunately the case. Is someone in the Sutton estate agent's office clearly liked Spice Girls, or was probably going there that night and thought, I'm going to see, you know, this is great content, and it's not. And I think it's really, really important that the relatability of content, when you're thinking about where you distribute it and who you distribute it to, is just mega important. False advertising. So I think it's interesting actually talking. Was it Yannick earlier? Was it the growth hacker guy? And I loved all that because so much of it goes on as well, particularly across social and with publishing and content and stuff. But a lot of people get caught out by these things, and this is what happened to Sunny Co clothing. So they promised everyone that they would get this swimsuit if they reposted, shared, and liked the post, and then they had to let everyone down because they just didn't have enough stock when it all happened. Now, the worst thing you can do as a page or as a community when you're creating content is really piss people off. You know, if you think about how you all use social, right, and actually how you value all of your time. When I get, if I'm reading something, I think someone mentioned something earlier, it might have been Amanda, where you was on about paywalls with editorial, right? I hate it when I've just started reading an article and that happens. Not because I'm like desperate to read the article, I'm probably pretty interested in it, but I'm just really annoyed that someone's took me off whatever I was on before, and then I get there and I'm like, oh, you're wasting my time. And this is what this is. You're getting people to engage and take that action. They're reposting something, which at the minute, and which will be even more so when you're getting people to take actions, it's more meaningful than we probably give credit for. Because less people do it now, and it's harder to engage, it's harder to make people stop on the feed. And doing things like this has such a negative impact. Whilst short term you might get loads of followers, and it might be a bit of a growth hack. Sorry to, go against what I'm saying, but ultimately, long term, it's going to ruin what you're trying to do and the content strategy you've got. So the bad content, I think the key thing from a bad content point of view is the no objectives part for this. So when we're creating content on the tools, the first thing we've got, Adam, our co-founder who I was speaking about earlier on, built like just a checklist basically, but had it printed onto a massive board in the creative room we've got, because it was about trying to follow a flow of content creation. And the first thing you start with is that objective, like what are you actually trying to do with the piece of content? And I think most times when people are creating content, sometimes, not most times, but sometimes the objective is just lacking, and therefore you create content because you think it's good or because you're interested in it. It's that whole Spice Girls thing again, like what the hell was the objective with that other than like, I'm going to Spice Girls, who else is going? And from that then, it's very difficult to build a customer journey. So the customer journey from our content strategy perspective is all about making content that's going to relate to other content that you can create. And even more so with social now, particularly with video content, it's really, really important that you're thinking about what the next episode is or what the following is from that piece of content. It's gone are the days where we can just publish lots of random short form content and it will still work for the publisher or for the marketeer or for the brand or whatever it might be. Has to be some kind of journey for it. And the benefit for everyone doing that as well is if you can create, when you're thinking about your content strategy, if you can create pillars and then within those pillars create a series of things or at least follow-ons, then the ability you have from an ad strategy after that is massive, because what you can do is you can then, whoever's watched the first video, for 50% of that, you can then target them to put an ad strategy behind the second video you put out, and if they've watched 50% of the second video, and you start creating a funnel for yourself where you don't have to just right hook everyone, and there's a real key part to making sure that you don't oversell when you're creating content. The content you're creating should be for the community, the audience, and without that, you're going to fail on social. You will not benefit by not creating content that doesn't sell. Not everything has to be selling. You've got to be creating content that people are going to actually watch or they're going to engage with the brand, and that's how you build that affinity through there. And the repetitiveness, this sort of brings me onto this. So this is a construction. This is really bad because in the good part, I'm not really nice, but there's the bad and the unshareable, isn't there? So there's I stand here and slag people off, but I'm going to because it's really bad. But so this company, Expertmate, they're based in the construction industry. They got to a point where they'd found something that worked, and it worked, I think, like 2 or 3 times where organically they got some good interaction from the community that they built. But what they then continued to do was just do the same thing over and over and over. And ultimately what happened was it stopped working. And there's which I'll come on to, but there's a real benefit to making sure that you are switching things up. It's like, I don't know how many people are ad strategists here or and what you're doing, but whether it be organic or whether it be paid, you'll always land on something that starts working, and you can get carried away and be like, this is wicked. I love this. This is we've solved it. Like me with my bin bags and sending my products out. I hadn't solved it. I just thought I had, and I'd solved it for a week, and then I had to do something different again. And I think there's as marketeers, we've got to make sure that we're being creative and we're not being boring. We're not just getting carried away with something that we've found out. So it brings me on to this. So be like the programs you watch, not the adverts in between. So the selling part, we all want to sell something, whether it be a service, whether it be a product, whether it just be views or eyeballs on content, but you're not going to do that through social if all you talk about is the product or service that you're trying to sell. It's just not going to work. And this is where, when you're creating content and you're trying to create a content strategy, you've got to put some time and effort into the stuff that isn't going to make money. Not all of it's going to make money, because it's not about that. If you're building a community for a brand, or you're building a community because you're a publisher, or you're building a community because you've got some form of service or an event, and that's where like festivals and things like that do it really well, because they create content that's engaging. And they don't necessarily, I mean, they've got the benefit, I guess, where they can create that and show the product. But you've got to have that content strategy underneath it, so that you ultimately, what you do is you engage the people that will buy your product, and then you target them again based on the fact that they've watched for X amount of time or a number of times with your brand. Guinness World Records did it really well. So there's a whole host of things you can go through with these sorts of things, and so you've got to make sure that whatever the strategy is, that you're using the right platform. There's lots of platforms. You've got the big ones, and then you get TikTok sort of appear from seemingly nowhere if you've not been keeping an eye on it. And Guinness World Records did this really well, so that firstly they chose the right platform. It's short form, younger generation who ultimately will watch weird content, and they've got the benefit that when they're uploading content, 99 times out of 100, it's different, it's unique. This did amazingly well. They built a 3.5 million following from posting and creating content that were people trying to do Guinness World Record attempts. And what happens here when you do that as well, when you're engaging people, is that you've got the ability to then sell products off the back of that. They've been able to grow a huge audience in a short space of time by surfacing content from a community that they're building as well. So once they've got on the track of building that community, they're then surfacing content from that community, similar to what we did with On The Tools, I guess, but on a platform that at the moment is absolutely booming. So it's that don't sell, entertain mentality, and we have it on the tools, and we really try and make sure that when we're working with brands or when we're creating content for our original team, that we're trying to make sure that we're going to engage and we're going to entertain people. So this is an example of Scruffs are a workwear brand, so they do trousers, hoodies, jackets, boots for tradespeople on site, so protective workwear. We really needed to make sure that we could get the product in, but still make it relatable, do end frames, do brand tags. But we didn't want, with the strategy we had with Scruffs, we had a product-heavy strategy where we would do real product-focused videos that would, highlight stitching on trousers, etc. But with an audience of 3.5 million, not everyone's going to want to know the detail, and particularly with tradespeople, is that they're almost tribal with the things that they buy. So they start in the industry at 16, and they buy Scruffs because the person they're learning how to do their job from wears Scruffs. They buy DeWalt or Makita batteries and drills because someone who's teaching them how to do their job has done the same. It's very much like you get bought into it. So this cost per acquisition for brands within the industry that are selling products that people buy because they don't really know why they buy it, they've just always bought it, it's really, really high, and it's very difficult to switch them. So it's about trying to be front of mind when you're trying to do content with them, and ultimately you cannot just try and go, here's a pair of trousers, here's a pair of boots, because the cost per acquisition on that, and particularly for an ad strategy, is just too high. So we flipped this on its head and said, okay, well, what can we, at the time, Attenborough was all over the TV and in the UK doing Blue Planet and someone shout that out. What's the wildlife one? It's not Blue Planet, is it? I'm looking at you because I know that you're not Attenborough man, yeah. Anyway, so we create content based around the voiceover style of Attenborough when he's watching a lion tear into something else, and this is the route we took with this piece of content. If it plays, would you believe it? Any technical assistance here, or? You know, for a video man. So I did the talk in London, and it was a PDF that got sent over, so it didn't work. And now the one that the PowerPoint was sent over, and that won't work. Can I do it on there, or?
No. I know.
Oh, it's desperate, isn't it? Well, anyway, it sort of, it went like this. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But what it allowed us to do it's a minute long, and it got 23 million views through the platform organically. And it's because, again, it shows that power of niche. So what happens when you deliver content is that it gets delivered to that niche, but because, particularly within the UK and that demo that we have, there's lots of males in the UK, so they're sharing that, it's relatable to their friends, and then it goes even further. Obviously, lots of people who weren't in the trade watch this content, but it puts Scruffs as the #1 entertainment partner in the month that we put it out. They shouldn't have been anywhere near it. They didn't, you know, they're not in that sector, they're not, you know, but because of how far the content reached, that's where they ended up. It just allows you to create funny, engaging content, but still have product at the forefront. And you know, from that as well, we've seen I think it was a 420% increase in sales across that week as well for Scruffs, which for us was brilliant, for them was brilliant, and gives us a good case study. So the good content should be actionable. I've put funny there, but really it should say emotive. It should be emotive. And you should be taking risks. And this is the thing, it's this crash, burn, repeat method. Within the office, we've got this mentality because we have to when we're creating content. And it's that thing about earlier on where I'm like, you know, don't repeat what you're doing. This is it, it's that you've got to try something new. 50% of the time, it's going to fail and it's going to be shit. And you're going to be, when you're creating this content, you're going to post it and you're going to schedule it and you're like, this is going to be amazing. And then it's not. No one likes it. And then you're like, oh, and you just got to do it again. It's the only way to create content. There's no other way to do it. There's no recipe book. There's no like, anyone who says there is a liar. Don't listen to him. Don't go and see him speak. But you've got to have that mentality when you're creating content. Dollar Shave Club do it really well. They're always looking at how they can do engaging content. This is, again, a smart way of being able to do it. They approach his and hers exactly the same, and they had a huge increase in sales when they ran this campaign as well. Very, very simple. Obviously strung on the equality mark, and people jumped on it, and it did really well for them. Thumb-stopping content is where we're at, and I think if you're not trying to do that, then you'll lose on social. You think about how you use social media. I know how I use it. I am just like, and then it's got to be something that's just going to catch my eye, and then I'll stop. And I'm probably worse than other people, I don't know, but I really don't like losing time on there. And I sound like a madman, don't I? But when you're on there, you want to stay on what you're on, and being able to constantly think, is this going to actually stand out on the feed, is a real good mentality to have when you're looking at content. I've got to wrap up very quickly, but I'll skim through these. Just good examples of how people sell product but don't even show the product. So Square Sayings sell things like water bottles and key rings and things like that. And they've got a pretty engaged audience, but all they did was start creating meme-style content that they were printing onto the products in this sort of like square icon style, and they've had real success in selling product, and you don't ever see any of it. It's very rare that they'll post anything of it, but people have just got to know that they sell these things, and they click through. And just a little bit on Facebook. This is my last screen now, but just from a content creation point of view, you've got to be looking at episodic long-form content. Make sure it's over a minute. Anything below a minute at the minute from video content perspective on Facebook organically will be marked down, and it's a pretty big marker in terms of the way they score it. The reason for that is because they want more ads. They've released ad breaks now for Facebook Watch, and they want to be able to place ads in 3-minute long content. And you've got to be thinking about how you can create longer content if you want to survive in the video world of social. Groups are a massive thing, again, because they want engaged communities, became a big part of the Blue product at F8. And if you haven't got a group and you own a business, or you're from a marketing team that within a business, if you've not got groups attached to what you're doing, you've got to go back. If that's the one thing you do from listening to me, go on, then do that, because it's a way of being able to, one, access content from the group, because it's aggregated from the actual users rather than from a page perspective. You're publishing things out, but it creates such a great space for a brand to be able to access people who are interested in their product or their brand. And try and move away from UGC if you are using it, because again, it's going to take a turn for the worse, rather than Facebook really want higher production content, because they want to be able to place ads in longer form content. They know that UGC content won't really ever become long form unless it's like You've Been Framed. That's a really bad reference for here, isn't it? But like a funny clips video program. I've rushed that last bit. If anyone's, I'm all right for questions now, or yeah, if anyone's got any.
I've been talking quite a lot today, but I certainly have a question. We've been experimenting as well that our organic feed on Facebook, it's just horrible. And my question is, if we move to groups, what do we need to do with our organic feed? Because we've been followers been streaming in, we have now like 50,000 followers, and when we post a post on Instagram, it gets several hundred likes, and we post the exact same post on Facebook, 10 likes, and that's it. So what do we do with our organic feed? Because I have a feeling that when somebody heard about our company, they go to our Facebook page and they see like, Fitzjurgens, 50,000 followers, and they see the content, it's like, 10 likes, nah, I'm not going to follow it. How do you combat that? So what's your advice on taking on the organic feed?
How often are you posting?
Three times a week.
3 times a week. Okay. So the first thing I would do is post daily. So I'll try and answer this in 2 parts. And I'll concentrate on the group. So the group part of it for me, one, it will be a good source of R&D or insight or whatever you want to call it, or what you do within your business. But it will definitely create content. And if it doesn't create content, it will create content ideas. You've got 50,000 followers, you just say. So there's nothing stopping you being able to get 5,000 people in a group quite quickly who are going to engage. They're going to be talking about a subject that is in line with what your business does.
You mean like in a group? In a group,
yeah, in a group. Yeah. They're going to be talking with each other. You then,
that's our next step, obviously.
Yeah, if you moderate that well enough, you'll either get content that you can repost, whether that be that someone's filming something themselves, or whether it be that it's image-led. But if you, at the very least, you'll get content ideas, because you can see the conversation, and that's the thing with groups, is people really do talk to each other. And if you've got that shared interest, and they're all there because you've put them there or you've invited them there on the basis of a shared interest that is going to benefit your business, you will be able to create a content strategy off the back of that. Go back onto the feed part. You've got to be creating more content. 3 a week is it's not consistent enough for Facebook to be putting you back into the feed, because what happens is that every time someone engages with your content, the likelihood is that if they engage a few other times, then they'll get fed that content. But if they only engage with your content once a month, because you're only posting once every 3 days, you've got less likely being able to drag that back onto their feed. So it is a numbers game. So I'm not saying go and post 10 times a day, because it's more than likely your content would start to take a dip in terms of quality. But I think if you can get to 1 a day as a starter and start looking at video content for Facebook at the minute is the golden egg. They don't really want. Yeah,
but we're also doing video content, and we're trying with different formats, and we're also trying to differentiate now the different streams of content per channel.
Yeah.
But I just find it so shit. Basically, yes. That.
It'd be good, and I don't mind. But if you want to follow, I'll give you my details afterwards, and we can chat a bit further on, so I can look specifically at it and see if I can help in any way. But that's what I would do, is definitely increase on the posting level. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
No worries.
We can hear you.
Sure?
Sure.
One more, that's it.
Nice.
I had a question more so about stories, Facebook and Instagram stories.
Yeah.
From the research that I've come across, people are saying you should, post like kind of behind the scenes as to what's happening in the company. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what other trends for content creation you'd want to do.
Yeah, so we've started trying to get the community involved again. So it sounds terrible, really. But the reason On the Tools did well at the start was because people wanted to be on the page. They just wanted to be on the page. It was like a 5 minutes of fame thing. So we're trying to look at how we can follow a similar route where we can engage people so that they know that they can feature on. I think we've got a benefit with On the Tools because of that real shared interest that people are on there all the time, every day, because they work with each other. So I think we've got a benefit over other publishers and marketeers and brands. But I think a good way to engage the community, I think that behind the scenes is a standard thing for brands to do, because sometimes they're going to struggle to show much else because of, I don't know, if you say you're Kellogg's and you sell cereal, it's difficult to go out and just show bowls of cereal, and show product. And then equally, it's not like an industry-led thing where you can show people working on cereal or, so then what ends up happening is that they show a HQ, but then you have to, again, objective-wise, you've got to then go back and go to the audience and go, why are the audience here? They're not there to go and watch people who work at Kellogg's. They're there to go and engage with the product or the brand, not necessarily the people behind the scenes. So sometimes it can fall flat. I think if you're working in production or media and things like that, I think behind the scenes on shoots and things work well. It just depends what is it, if you don't mind me asking, what's the business that
It's real estate marketing.
Okay, you could be like certain estate agents and do Spice Girls. No, don't do that. So that would work really well. Behind the scenes on that is an absolute bonus, because you've got a product, i.e. the building, to be able to really showcase what it is that you've got on the book. So, if I'm in the right arena, I'm sure there's much more detail to it, but that would work for your business 100%. But again, happy to sort of chat. I know I've got to get off, haven't I? So I'm happy to chat more about it if you want to. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Cool, round of applause
Cheers.
for Lee.